You know, AutoZone is great at helping their customers.
True. From free battery charging to loaner tool, they help people get in the zone.
I was thinking, what if they also helped us send 4 listeners to the ESPYs?
Greeny, that's exactly what they're doing. It's the Mike and Mike experience at the ESPYs presented by AutoZone. Folks just have to listen and watch us from April 20th through May 15th. All the details are at espnradio.com/Mike's ESPY contest.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
It's called The Zone. AutoZone's going to help you get there.
National League Central rivals go head-to-head this weekend when the Pirates face the Cubs at Wrigley.
Swing and a miss. He struck him out.
The pregame at 3 Eastern, first pitch at 4. Saturday on ESPN Radio and the new ESPN app. This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast on ESPNRadio.com. The Best of Mike and Mike.
Hi, it's Greeny. Thank you for checking out the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. Is what we have for you today. Jay Williams with his thoughts all over the NBA playoffs. Louis Riddick, his perspective on the Eagles signing Tim Tebow. Stephen A. Smith with his thoughts on the NBA, Tebow, and Floyd Mayweather. Plus, the man of the Cubs, Theo Epstein.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
Back and better than ever, Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests, as always, on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Monday, the 20th of April, the year 2015. So glad you've chosen to start your day and your week with us. Jay Williams in for Golic this morning, and we have so much to get to this morning. I just want to start very quickly, before we get to anything else, by saying thank you so very much to everyone for the incredibly nice notes and support that I received last week. It's not a secret. I had a difficult week last week, some family business I had to attend to, and I'm fine, and everything is as fine as it's going to be, and I'll get into details at the appropriate time. But I just want to say that, Jay, they say that Twitter can be a very mean place, and it can be, at times, a very mean place, but it can also be a very wonderful place. And I received more nice notes that meant more to me than I could possibly explain over the course of last week. And so I just want to say thanks to everybody. I'm back. I'm thrilled to be back, and thank you very much to Ryan Rucco, who jumped in here with no warning, and that was not anticipated. And what a talented kid he is, and just a nice person. So my thanks to him, my thanks to everybody, and I'm thrilled to be back, and I'm thrilled to see you.
Well, good that positive people still exist out there.
You know what I mean? That's the thing, is people, there are some people out there who just want to write you something nasty no matter what happens. And the key to life, I have learned, it was a week for sort of examining life and its meaning and stuff like that, which is not a bad thing to stop and do every once in a while, is to just ignore that. Ignore the people who, for whatever their reasons are, want to try and make you feel bad, and instead pay attention to and celebrate and rejoice in the people who want to make you feel good, because I had far more of that than I had of anything else last week, and that was nice. And obviously, sports is what we're here to talk about, and I have been looking forward more than I can tell you to talking about sports for a week. So let me run through a list for you. We got Tim Tebow signing with the Eagles. We got the Mets winning 8 straight. We got Jim Harbaugh right where he belongs, so we can prove it. And maybe most importantly of all, our spring contest begins today. In this hour, we will explain how you can win our biggest and best trip yet. All of that is on the way, but let's start, my friend, with this.
Griffin sets a screen, dodge, gets the ball. Oh, my goodness! Hello! Nasty! Oh, Blake Griffin posterizes Aaron Beans, and the Clippers lead by 10, and the crowd alive here in downtown L.A.
The call on the Beast 980, and the Beast is what Blake Griffin was. This poor guy, Jeff Ayers, played 3 minutes and 16 seconds last night, Jay, and he got posterized not once, not twice, but 3 times. That's an average of once per minute that Blake Griffin just threw down in his face.
I give him an A for effort, but obviously he gets an F for not blocking one of them. The funny about Blake Griffin, he almost caught Tim Duncan in the first quarter of that ball game, and we've all been waiting to see this Blake Griffin, right? And I actually came out with a list of top 10 players in the league, and he wasn't on that list because I haven't seen that kind of play from him yet this season. That's a team that looks like they can get deep into the playoffs.
Give me your thoughts on Griffin, in particular what he did last night when he's aggressive. Obviously, look, when it comes to dunking in people's face, he's the best in the world.
Most definitely.
And there's something to be said for that. It's a delightful skill to have, and it's awfully fun to watch. But it doesn't win you championships. So when you say that Blake Griffin, what are you talking about?
Because that Blake Griffin didn't settle for jump shots. that Blake Griffin put the ball down the ground and he drove to the basket. And it was all set by Chris Paul. CP3 came out with this blazing tone throughout the course of the ball game. And that's a Chris Paul that we want to see, too. That's a Chris Paul that hasn't gotten to the Western Conference Finals, that there's a lot of criticism on him right now. And I heard all the TNT guys, most of them with the exception of Charles Barkley, picked the other team to win. And I just, watching the Clippers last night, that's a Clippers team that can go deep if they get that kind of play out of CP3 and Blake Griffin.
They shot the ball very well last night. They shot at 51% from the floor, 55% from three. Griffin had 26 points and 12 rebounds. Chris Paul had 32 points last night in the game. So they played very efficiently and well. It was only once that he dunked on Ayers? I thought it was all three of them were on Ayers. Okay, my bad. I apologize to Jeff Ayers and his family because I thought they were all three on him. Two of them were on Baines. Either way.
That's what happens when you get dunked on like that, though.
He was throwing down. I was watching the highlights this morning. I saw some of the game last night, and I was watching it all this morning. That one you just watch over and over and over again. Griffin extremely effective last night. And then the other side of it is the Spurs, who like to run that offense, and last night it was nowhere to be found. They shoot only 36% from the floor, only 30% from three. You didn't see good numbers from any of their big group. What is the problem that you saw with the Spurs trying to get into that offense? I saw DeAndre Jordan blocking shots last night to some degree, a major factor in the paint on the defensive side. He had 3 block shots last night, got the crowd fired up with some of those. That crowd is going crazy there in L.A. It's sort of setting the stage for what should be a very interesting series because you figure San Antonio will play better.
I think they will. It's been interesting to watch San Antonio the last 2 games because you got a chance to watch them at the Pelicans when they obviously lost out an opportunity to get a 2 seed. They got a 6 seed. And look, in order for San Antonio to be great, Tony Parker needs to be phenomenal. He needs to be phenomenal. He hasn't been that all year. He's had glimpses of being phenomenal. And you look at Kawhi Leonard played decently. Danny Green was 2 of 11 from the field. Hey, you need your backcourt to be big time. And look, the front line for the Clippers is more athletic than the front line of Thiago Splitter and Tim Duncan. It is what it is. They can still win this series, but they need to get back to efficient basketball. They can't get lost in this up and down pace style of play with the Clippers.
We're Mike and Mike. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. You can save hundreds on your car, business, or recreational vehicle insurance from a local independent agent. Go to Progressive.com today. Now that's Progressive. After the win, Doc Rivers.
They're still the defending champs, and they're going to be defending champs every night, so we have a lot of confidence in our team, but you just have to stay humble and respect who you're playing. They're a heck of a basketball team, and we won 1 game.
Now, I don't know how big I did the best I could last week to be up on everything that was going on. I was in Southern California, so where I was, a very big deal was made of the fact that Doc Rivers was very unhappy with the playoff seeding.
I was going to say your tan looks great, by the way.
Well, thank you very much.
Compliment you on that.
I wasn't outside for more than 30 seconds, but that's neither here nor there. That's all makeup you're seeing, my friend, all makeup. But Doc Rivers was making a very big deal of the playoff seeding. And I found that interesting in that my thought was, and again, I get that these are professionals, and so they know what they're dealing with. But it sounded to me like he was basically saying, man, we had too good a season to be stuck playing San Antonio in the first round, which sounded to me like it might have been putting sort of a negative thought in the head of his players. Now, you tell me, you understand this stuff better than I do. What's he doing there? And do you think that really was what was upsetting him?
Yeah, I think he's just trying to help Mike Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, just adjust. As times go on. I mean, you talk about the way the Clippers and the Spurs finished the regular season. They were 2 of the hottest teams in the league. It's unfortunate that one of these teams are going to have to go home. But I don't think it really affected the players. I think it's a different team. And look, CP3, he's one of the top 3 guards in the league. I mean, if you had to ask me to rank guards, it would go Steph Curry, Russell Westbrook, then CP3, and I would have Kyrie Irving number 4. So this is his time, and I think this team truly understands that. So this team is going to be ready to play regardless, in my opinion.
So Steph Curry, Russell Westbrook, then CP3.
Then CP3, then I have Kyrie Irving,
who was brilliant yesterday. We'll get to that game coming up in a minute. As far as Greg Popovich is concerned,
their defense was better than our offense. That's the bottom line. Their aggressiveness, their physicality, their athleticism really hurt us offensively. It was their defense, not just Jordan. I mean, he's part of their defense, but I thought everybody did a great job. Perimeter-wise, they denied in passing lanes. They got up into us. Their closeouts on our threes, all that sort of thing, was better than our offense tonight.
The Clippers, when I was making a list yesterday, hours before this game was played, I sat down and looked at it and said, here are the teams that I could see coming out of the East. Here are the teams I could see coming out of the West. I only had 3 names written down in the East. And that was Cleveland, Chicago, and Atlanta.
Yep.
Not necessarily in that order. I just was sort of going through it. And in the West, I said, I could really, and this is, they made me look very bad for one night. I said I could see anybody but New Orleans or the Clippers coming out of the West. For some reason, in my mind, that was the one that sort of, I could even see Dallas coming out of there more easily. I could see Dallas getting red hot and playing great.
Well, depending on Monty else. Is that more so just because the Clippers haven't done it that you don't think they could?
I don't know why I thought that. I mean, I think I looked at this and I said, what a terrible first-round matchup that is. It sounds to me like their coach didn't want any part of playing San Antonio. The Spurs are going to go in playing great. They've got all the experience in the world. I like San Antonio to win the series. I would imagine most people like San Antonio to win this series. Now, the Clippers really went out and put some question in your mind. It's one game. It's one game out of a best-of-7 and a series that's going to go on potentially over the course of 2 weeks. So you can't overreact, but it's very difficult not to react at least somewhat to what your eyes have seen this quickly.
Actually, I have the Clippers in 6, and I think this is going to be a big year for the Clippers. And when you watch San Antonio play, look, Tim Duncan is phenomenal. I mean, he's had a phenomenal year. They've actually Popovich was talking about they want him to play 26 minutes, even though he's been around 31. Mm-hmm. But this Clippers front line is way more athletic. If they can sustain this kind of intensity and aggressiveness, I think it's going to be overwhelming for a Spurs team that's actually not trending in the right direction.
All right, we're Mike and Mike. Jay Williams is here. Again, as I mentioned right off the top, so much going on in the world of sports today, including a football signing that had everybody buzzing yesterday, whether it actually means anything or not in the big picture. And our big contest, our spring contest, with the details of that coming up in this hour. But in just 1 minute, we'll get to LeBron, and I've got a question for you about one of LeBron James' teammates, one that could potentially, I think, shape an era as we go forward. We'll do that in 1 minute after a word from 1-800-Flowers.com. There are so many reasons to send roses this time of year. Birthdays, anniversaries. Don't forget Mother's Day is coming up. Celebrate these special occasions by sending a beautiful rose bouquet from 1-800-Flowers.com. Sending a dozen roses or 2 dozen roses from 1-800-Flowers.com is always impressive. But imagine her reaction when you send 3 dozen roses. And that's why 1-800-Flowers.com has created an incredible exclusive offer for our listeners. 36 stunning multicolored roses for just $36. An abundant, enormous bouquet. 3 dozen roses for just $36, but it's available this week only. And here's how you order. 36 roses for $36. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com from your desktop or your mobile device. Click on the radio microphone in the upper right-hand corner. Type in our name, Mike. That's 1-800-Flowers.com. Type in Mike or call 1-800-Flowers and mention our name, Mike, for this special offer. 3 dozen roses for just $36.
Here's Thomas penetrating. His pass out is tipped by James. Down court, LeBron against Turner. Throws it down with a vicious right hand.
Didn't put the ball on the floor. Caught one step. Filthy flush.
John Barry and Mark Kessler with a call right here on ESPN Radio yesterday as the Cavaliers open up their new era, if you will. I mean, this whole season obviously was a prelude to what would happen in the playoffs, and Kyrie Irving making his first ever playoff game, and Kevin Love making his first ever playoff game, and what would happen with those guys. And we saw what happened yesterday. They opened slow. Boston jumps out to an early lead. The Cavaliers go on a big run. They open up a 22-point lead in the third quarter. Boston chips away. Give them credit. They actually cut it to 6 in the fourth quarter. Then Cleveland holds on to win. What did you see from the Cavs yesterday?
I think the first 3 or 4 minutes of the ball game, I saw LeBron James come out and just be everywhere defensively. And it was actually a great soundbite that we were able to catch in that first game. He just said, I got to burn out. I got to burn out. I got to burn out. I got to get to my second win. And I think that set the tone for a team, especially for young guys who haven't been there before, that they have to get this done on the defensive end. Now, Kevin Love was abysmal in the first half. He was 2 of 11 from the field. He really stepped up in the latter part of the game, 19 points, 12 rebounds. But I'm telling you, man, the more and more I watch Kyrie, and I got roasted on Twitter saying this 2 years ago. I said, he's going to be one of the best guards in the league. He was top 5 for me 2 years ago. And watching him, that ball is on the string. He made a move on Evan Turner, Greeny, in the left-hand corner, where he gave him an in-and-out cross to end the half. And, I mean, Evan Turner's knees looked like they were about to pop out of the skin. I mean, it was that big time of a move, and that's who Kyrie Irving is as a player.
I thought that Jalen made a good point. I saw them. I can't remember. It wasn't. Maybe it was halftime. Yeah, because he had scored 20 points in the first half.
Yep.
And in the halftime show with Doug and Sage Steele, Jalen Rose made a point that while this is Kyrie Irving's first NBA postseason game, It's not like he hasn't played in big moments before. He's been the MVP of the All-Star game. Yep. He was a huge-time player in college, played in the NCAA tournament. They didn't go far the year that he was there for Duke, but he did play in the NCAA tournament. Again, multiple All-Star games. He was the first pick in the NBA draft. So he's a big-time player. And I don't want to overreact. Please don't mistake my asking this question today as though I'm overreacting to one huge performance. And it was a huge performance from him yesterday. He had 30 points, 20 of them in the first half, and only one turnover. But is it possible that as we move forward into whatever this era of Cavaliers basketball is going to be, and I think we all expect them to make a fairly deep run this year, although the way it sets up, they get Chicago in the second round, and that to me, if Rose plays like he played in game one, that could be a toss-up. But let's just say that we're watching the beginning of this era of Cavaliers basketball, and we figure them to be real good going forward. At his age and this stage of his development, is it possible that LeBron going forward now has the best teammate he's ever had in the playoffs? Now, Dwayne Wade obviously is a first ballot Hall of Fame player. But by the time LeBron got to Miami and sort of took the reins over when they won the 2 championships they won there, you know, all the conversation was about how many big games in a row can Dwayne Wade string together. The knees had already sort of started to slow him down. I'm not talking about historically. But is it possible that going forward, yes, he has the best teammate he's ever had?
Yes, I mean, he had D-Wade for that 1 year where D-Wade was actually D-Wade. He was Flash. I think the last year that they were able to win it, they obviously had to control, you know, Tim Grover, who's his trainer, they did a really good job of making sure that, you know, his playing time is a little bit limited, you know, giving him enough rest. Kyrie Irving doesn't need that. Kyrie Irving's in his early 20s. And, you know, by the way, the kid was the first pick and only played about 13 or 14 games for Duke. Right. That goes to show you something about how talented the kid is. MVP, All-Star MVP, FIBA, he took over this past summer. And there's no doubt about it. Kyrie is he's one of the top 10 players in the league right now.
In his first playoff game, again, 30 points last night for Kyrie Irving and only 1 turnover. We'll put him in the zone, which is brought to you by AutoZone. Get some of the money back you put into your car. Head to AutoZone today for your free AutoZone rewards card. Let AutoZone pay you to shop. Get in the zone with AutoZone. Here's LeBron on his teammates Love and Irving playing their first postseason game.
I thought they were phenomenal. You know, starting with Kyrie, I think, you know, he's our floor general. You know, he set the tone early on with his ability to make shots, his ability to get in the lane. Thought he was phenomenal. You know, even with the Cavs shot not falling early, I felt like just the rhythm that he was in and the aggressiveness he was in will pay off later for us, and he turned it around in the second half. He was very aggressive. They succeeded, you know, their first time being in the postseason.
So what do you think? LeBron James talking about Kyrie's our floor general. He clearly was looking to get Kevin Love involved yesterday, kept throwing him that pass in the corner. He's right. Love missed a bunch of those shots early, but eventually they started to fall, and that was really when they opened up their huge lead. What are your thoughts on those two guys?
I think they were phenomenal. And I thought Kevin Love, the first half was very tight. He looked like every shot, he had so much pressure on him to make every shot. Now, it all depends on what you want to describe Kyrie as. If you want to call him a point guard, I mean, he only had 2 assists the other day. LeBron James is more the point guard in that team. But something else I saw from Kyrie that I've been questioning about him for the last couple of years, his ability to defend. He actually looked like he wanted to defend the other day. And that's something different from him that I haven't really seen. When you combine his offensive abilities with his ability to actually get down in the stance and defend, and that's a team that can win the championship.
We are, Mike. And Mike, the other wins yesterday, the Hawks hold off the Nets late. I mean, the Nets hung on in that game in the fourth quarter. They were right there.
Whenever we talk about that, I think I'm going to lose it on Darren Williams.
Really?
I'm going to lose it on Darren Williams. I mean, Darren Williams is 6'5", 220 pounds. He has top 5 point guard talent. I don't think he has that dog in him anymore, Greeny. The guy, how can he play 33 minutes and have 2 assists? I'll save that for later.
No, well, we'll get to it. Paul Pierce, I think, agrees with you based upon some of the things that he said last weekend. And then the Grizzlies blew out Portland. Don't let the final score of that game fool you, 100-86. It wasn't nearly that close. And Portland is a team that I've loved all year long, because I love those 2 stars, neither of whom played particularly well. Aldridge got it going in the second half yesterday. Damian Lillard had just a terrible night. We are Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. All our guests on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline, including Phil Sheridan, who covers the Eagles for us. He'll be live from Philly in just a few minutes as they make yet another fascinating move. It is a move that is probably more interesting than it is significant. You know, I mean, the whole world is going to go crazy because the Eagles bring in Tim Tebow. Now, you know, they signed Tim Tebow to a 1-year contract. as a producer Ray Netchie said to me before we started, they're kicking the tires. I mean, you have absolutely nothing to lose. You bring him in, you see if he helps you out with something. The Patriots did it a couple of years ago. Personally, I like Tim Tebow a lot, just as a guy, and he's been working out here for the last year, and I know how badly he wants this, so I'm glad that he's going to get one more shot. And I understand, based upon the magnitude of who he is, why it's going to generate so much conversation. Yep. But the reality is, to me, it's a lot more interesting than it is significant if the distinction there makes sense.
I agree with you. Now, look, I'm not a quarterback. I don't have that experience playing in the league. I hear a lot of our QBs who are here question his footwork and his throwing mechanics. I mean, but the guy did do pretty well for the Broncos, got them to a playoff game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then
won a playoff game.
Won a playoff game. It's not like
he has won a playoff game more recently than the Eagles have. Exactly. He won a playoff game in 2011. Mark Sanchez won a playoff game as recently as 2010. The Eagles haven't won a playoff game since 2008. So they have two quarterbacks on their roster who have won a playoff game more recently than they have.
Now you go to the Jet side of the things. I mean, does Rex Ryan, is he really good with quarterbacks? Because I saw what he did with Mark Sanchez, and I saw what Chip Kelly did with Mark Sanchez. So I don't know. If you put this kid in the best possible position in the read offense, you might be able to get something out of him. I don't know.
They have Sam Bradford, they have Mark Sanchez, and they have Tim Tebow. It's sort of a fascinating little setup
Matt
that
Barkley
they have
too,
there.
right?
And they have Matt Barkley. They got a lot of quarterbacks who were very good in college.
All of USC.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
Guys, when you buy your clothes at DXL, you look good. But you feel like a rock star. So if you want to look and feel like you'll find all the brands you love, waist size 38 and up, all in one awesome store. DXL, you're looking good. Right now, select dress shirts are just $49.50 each when you buy 2 or more.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Let me start with this. Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving each had huge performances in their first ever playoff games. Davis had 35, Irving had 30. Do you know that the record for most points for a player in his first 2 career playoff games is held by?
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
No, it's not.
No?
It's George Mikan.
Wow.
Kareem had 69, Chris Paul 67, Julius Irving 66, Bob Lanier 65, but George Mikan had 75.
Ooh.
You got to go all the way back to Mikan. You're going back well over half a century to the player who had the most points in his first 2 career playoff games. So that is the mark that Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving, and I suppose theoretically others would be shooting for in their second career playoff game. That number coming from the Elias Sports Bureau. More basketball for you. I just found this a remarkable symmetry. Derrick Rose in his first playoff game basically in 3 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
His team wins 103-91, and he scored 23 points. Did you know that in his last playoff game in 2012, his team won 103-91, and he had 23 points? I mean, it's purely coincidence, obviously. It's significant to absolutely nothing. But when I saw it, it just jumped off the page at me. 3 years ago, and then on Saturday night. They won 103-91, and he had 23 points. The game was exactly the same, with the exception of the fact that he didn't tear up his knee at the end of it.
And, by the way, the burst that he showed the other night against the Bucks, I mean, that's D. Rose of old time right there.
Can he do it over the course of a grinding, pounding, long playoff series, which we don't necessarily expect them to have here against Milwaukee? But if they advance and Cleveland advances, can he do that every single night? Can he put that together 5, 6, 7 times against the Cavs? That's the question.
Well, if he's being guarded by Kyrie Irving, it's going to be interesting.
What a great matchup that has. I'm fascinated to watch that. If they get to that, I think we all expect it will. One more quick nerd alert for you. The Dodgers, this is a note on the Dodgers, but more to the point, it's a note on the Brewers. Last night in the Dodgers' 7-0 win over the Rockies, L.A. hit 3 home runs in a span of 4 plate appearances in the 6th inning. That is as many home runs as the Brewers have hit this season. The Brewers have hit 3 home runs in the 2015 season. The Dodgers hit 3 home runs in 4 plate appearances in the 6th inning last night.
That's painful. Who was pitching?
That's bad. I don't have that note in front of me, but whoever it wasn't well. But whoever's pitching against the Brewers all year long has been doing just fine. Those are my nerd notes, again, soon to be renamed, and we'll have a little fun when we get a chance to do that. Mike and Mike, Louis Riddick is going to join us in our studio in just 2 minutes. But before we get to that, I promised you this story. I want to play it for you. I just think it's fascinating. We talked about Jim Harbaugh and his opportunity, I think, to be a great college coach, and how he is more cut out to be a college coach than a pro coach because of his style. And then we talked about how Coach K, I think, is largely misperceived. People think of him as this sort of cuddly, grandfatherly-like figure. And I think he is a genuinely great person. But he's a tough coach, and you know it better than anybody. And I want to just play you the story Shane Battier told on our show the week of the Super Bowl. It was the day after Coach K won his 1,000th game. Here's a little taste of Coach K's powers of motivation with Shane Battier going way back.
Going into my junior year, we just lost the national championship to UConn. And it was the year that Trajan Langdon had graduated, Elton Brand, William Avery, Corey Maggette had all entered the NBA draft. Everyone thought that, Duke is over. All that was left in the cupboard was a couple role players, myself, Chris Carroll, Nate James, and a bunch of bright-eyed, bushy-tailed freshmen named Jay Williams, Mike Dunleavy, and Carlos Boozer. They said, Duke is done, their studs are gone. And so Coach knew he needed some people to step up. So I was interning in Chicago one summer, and he called me out of the blue and said, "Hey, Shane, are you ready to be an All-American next year?" And I said, "Well, Coach, it's funny you say that." Click. Hangs up on me. Next day, calls same time and says, "Hey, Shane, are you ready to average 20 and 10 next year?" I said, "Coach, come on." Click. Hangs up again. Third day, finally wise up. He calls and says, "Hey, Shane, are you ready to be the National Player of the Year next year?" I said, "Coach, I am ready to be the national player and lead us to a Final Four next year." And, obviously I understood what he was doing. He was trying to make me have the vision of being the guy for this Duke team, the guy that this team needed to be to get to the next level. And really, that was the start of my best basketball at Duke. And we finished that year number 1 in the country and lost in the Sweet 16 to a really good Florida team. But that set the stage for our national championship run in 2001. And he just didn't amazing. I've never been around a coach who had challenged me like that. But it was essential for me unlocking my potential.
That was Shane Battier, again, back in January, the day after Coach K won his 1,000th game. Jay Williams, again, you played from 3 years. That's one of my favorite stories that anyone has ever told on the show. I think it was such a great example of what makes a coach like him so successful.
He still coaches people, too, and I'll give you a prime example. I'm in the middle of writing this book called Life is Not an Accident. It's my own book, and about a year ago, I sent it to him, and I didn't hear from him for about a month. And then all of a sudden he gives me a call back, and he's like, small talk at the beginning. And I say, so Coach, what are your thoughts? And he's like, well, if I was a teacher, I would hand you the test back and say, take it home and do it again. It could be better. And it's the same guy that sends me texts about your tie is crooked on TV. He's always coaching in every single aspect of life, just not the game.
I love that story. All right, Louis Riddick is in our studio, NFL front office insider, his perspective on Tebow, the draft, and a whole lot more in exactly 1 minute after a word from 1-800-Flowers.com. There are so many reasons to send roses this time of year. Birthdays, anniversaries, don't forget Mother's Day is around the corner. Celebrate all these special occasions by sending a beautiful rose bouquet from 1-800-Flowers.com. Sending 1 or 2 dozen roses from 1-800-Flowers is impressive, always. But imagine her reaction when you send 3 dozen roses. And that's why 1-800-Flowers.com has created this exclusive offer for our listeners and viewers. 36 stunning multicolored roses for just $36. An abundant bouquet of 3 dozen roses for just $36. An incredible value available this week only. Have it delivered tomorrow or lock in this amazing deal now for delivery in time for Mother's Day. Here's how to order 36 roses for $36. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com from your desktop or your mobile device. Click on the radio microphone in the upper right-hand corner and type in our name, Mike. That's 1-800-Flowers.com and type in Mike or call 1-800-Flowers. And if you do, make sure you mention our name, Mike. Tim Tebow threw 8 touchdowns and 1 pick on play action in 16 games as a starting quarterback in Denver. The Eagles ran more play action last year than any team in the NFL. Now, I think most of us, even me, I'm a Tim Tebow fan. But based on him personally, I like him. If you meet him, he's very difficult not to like. He's just a nice guy. And he wants it so badly that you want to see a guy like him at least get one more chance. And maybe now he's getting that chance. Tim Tebow will sign with the Philadelphia Eagles. And joining us now in our studio, Louis Riddick, our ESPN NFL front office insider extraordinaire, with his Subway Fresh take on that and more. When we booked you, Louis, you didn't know we'd be talking about Tim Tebow this morning, did you?
It's the last thing I was thinking, man. But it's good, though. It's good. Let's talk about it.
What is your big picture perspective on, you know what Chip Kelly does. You know what Tim Tebow's skill set is. We've been wondering for years, is there a way to have a role for Tim Tebow to utilize those skills? The Jets didn't even try. Do you think Chip Kelly will?
Well, sure. I mean, this offense is one where the running portion of it for the quarterback obviously fits Tim's skill set. Now, how they would work that into this scenario in an NFL game on a Sunday during the regular season, I have no idea. I just don't see it. I've heard people speculate over the fact that, well, maybe if the extra point scenario is changed around where it becomes all 2-point conversions, that Tim Tebow could become like a wild card in that kind of scenario. But you don't sign players, as far as I'm concerned, when you're building a 53-man roster, for that kind of scenario. The fact of the matter here is this, and Chip hit on it a couple of years ago. Tim is kind of like a running back who sometimes throws the football. He's really not a quarterback that can run. It just doesn't fit that way. And Chip made this comment a couple of years ago. So here's the other thing I'll say about, whenever any kind of roster transaction that you're making at this time of year, you don't play games for 4 months. So this could be something that quickly goes away just as quickly as it came upon us. As soon as Tim starts throwing the football, as soon as they start realizing that maybe it's just not, the same way with New England. He's just not good enough to be on this football team.
Here's that quote, by the way. I'm sorry to interrupt, but the quote, this was in November of 2012 on Grantland. Chip Kelly was quoted as saying, "I look for a quarterback who can run, not a running back who can throw. I want a quarterback who can beat you with his arm. We are not a Tim Tebow type of quarterback team. I'm not going to run my quarterback 20 times on power runs." That's the quote that he had.
I was going to say, does the attention really go away? I mean, for a guy like Tim Tebow, like we've seen the kind of mass hysteria created with the Patriots, and with all the attention, does this kind of add on to already kind of wild card, thoughts on what Chip Kelly has done with this team, right? Because people were already questioning what's going on with LaShawn McCoy, letting him go, obviously getting DeMarco Murray and Ryan Matthews adds into the equation. But does that hurt or help?
Well, I think with Chip himself, Chip doesn't care. Now, in Philadelphia, you know how it's going to be in Philly. You know how it's already right now. Now it's like, what is he doing? They're already asking, what is he doing? What is his formula here for building this football team? Now they're going, now what's this? You said this a couple of years ago. Now you're bringing this guy in here. I mean, what's he going to do for you? They signed Sam Bradford, who can't really run. Now you signed Tim Tebow, who can't really throw. So what are you doing? Now, if you combine them, maybe you have something. But see, that's the thing. That's where people are constantly, Chip is having people constantly guessing right now as to, what really is the method to your madness here. I still think at the end of the day, for me, and I said this a couple of weeks ago, I said it months ago, I mean, Marcus is the ideal. He's the ideal. Will they get him? Probably not. Could they? Maybe. But Chip knows that people are going to try and hold him hostage to try and get up there to get him. So we already know that scenario. But look, Chip is just one of those guys. He's such a unique guy. He really does. Some people say I'm impervious to the noise and what people are saying about me. This guy lives it. He just doesn't care right now. He has his own formula. He's going to do things his way. And he's one of those guys who always says, just because it's always been done a certain way doesn't mean I have to do it that way.
Mike and Mike, Lewis Riddick in our studio. The end of last week, Adrian Peterson was reinstated by the NFL. The Vikings put out the statement you knew they would, saying we're looking forward to having him back. Yep. It's clear he doesn't want to be there. I saw you regularly on Twitter have been saying if you're the Dallas Cowboys, you're not even thinking of making a trade for him.
No, there's a lot of good running backs in this draft. Just coming out of the Combine recheck this past weekend, from what I've heard, Todd Gurley is on track. He's on track to be ready to play at the beginning of the season. Now, will he be up to full strength? Will he be at his best? No, that'll probably take a year. But there's some other guys, Tevin Coleman, who went to Combine rechecks, who had a toe injury at Indiana. Good to go. Duke Johnson, very good-looking player. Amir Abdullah, Jay Ajayi from Boise State. I mean, you've got some good backs here that you'll be able to get second, third round. That behind that offensive line will look great. I'm just not really willing to go ahead and trade for a guy like that at this point in time, given what else that team needs. But Dallas is on the right track right now. And if I'm Minnesota, and I've been saying this also, Mike, I'm just saying, hey, Adrian, I'll see you in August. You say whatever you want, I'll see you in August.
Is that purely a financial thing, or, I mean, do you think AP doesn't bring great qualities to Dallas if it were to work?
No, he does, Jay, but it's just about looking at the greater overall 53-man roster here. I just don't think you need to go ahead and extend yourself as far as that kind of commitment to that position in order to get to really where you need to get to. You just don't. Is AP going to put Dallas over the top? I mean, he's going to make them better. He's going to make Minnesota a lot better. He's going to make whatever team he plays for a lot better. I'm just saying this. You only have so many cap dollars to go around. You only have so many spots on a 53-man roster. I think Dallas could be better served using their the chips that they have to build their football team to put it other places. Because there's some good backs in this draft.
Mike and Mike, Lewis Riddick is here. It's always about the quarterbacks, and I was away last week, and I did my best to sort of stay plugged into what was going on. The sense I got is that there was a little bit of steam being picked up for the hold on, Jameis Winston might not be the first pick after all kind of momentum. So I have two questions. One, what are you hearing about the Winston-Mariota dynamic? And two, is one of the other quarterbacks sort of emerging as a clear-cut third pick amongst quarterbacks? I don't mean the third pick in the draft, but a third choice amongst quarterbacks.
You know, I'll take it backwards there. Is there a clear-cut number 3? No, not for me. All these guys have holes for me. Yeah, you know, right now it's kind of funny. You have a little bit of time here between now and the draft, so it's almost like people get bored and want to just kind of drum up stories and push guys up the board, really, when they haven't played any games in 4 or 5 months. But as far as the top 2 quarterbacks are concerned, look, it's always been the same with Jameis. It's always been about the off-field. It's always going to be about, can you trust him, can you not trust him? Can you trust him? Will he make the decisions that he needs to make? It is not about his play on the football field. I know people have picked apart the number of interceptions that he threw. Look, I've talked to a couple different quarterback coaches who have said this. Look, did he take chances in 2014? Yeah, he did. Did he make some decisions that he shouldn't have made? Sure, but he's one of the great anticipatory throwers that you will see coming out of college running a pro-style offense. And he thought he could make some plays that he probably shouldn't have tried to make. But if you look at the number of plays that he did make, that there aren't a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL that can make them. And this whole notion about the fact that Jameis is one of these guys who can't get away from pressure and he's a slug and he's not a good athlete and all, I think that's one of the most ridiculous arguments I've heard so far. Because I can pull up right now, I could go to my computer and give you 10 plays where I go, I bet you Eli Manning can't make that play. Drew Brees can't make that play. Peyton Manning can't make that play. Tom Brady can't make that play. Unless you're telling me that this kid from the pocket can't be as good as those guys, which I would argue that maybe he can be. So let's not pick apart the fact that he might not be athletic enough. This has always been about what is Jameis the player going to do for you, and are you going to be able to have him because he will make the right decisions or won't. It's not about his play on the field. He's going to be just fine.
Who do you take first pick? I mean, if you between Jameis and
you don't ask me that question. But you know what? Look, I love Marcus because I think Marcus is going to do a lot more things from the pocket on third down, throwing the football than people will give him credit for. Now, remember, at the end of the year, last year, it was, Marcus is really just benefiting from the offense. He's just throwing the open spots. The offense is creating all these kind of lanes for him. Now it's, wow, Marcus really does read progressions. He really is a full-field reader. Well, yeah, he was a full-field reader back in January. But see, now the momentum just shifts, man. It's kind of weird right now. It's really weird. Who do I take? If I have the structure in Tampa, I take him. If I think I can handle him off the field. Me personally, knowing what I know, look, I have a hard time with this, and I've been on record about these kind of things as far as character is concerned. So I've seen it ruin players' careers. I've seen guys with great talent who are just knuckleheads, man. I used to hang out with some. I know how these guys work. And I don't know Jameis enough to say this. But knowing what I know, I'd be scared to pick him. Yeah, I would.
Mike and Mike.
Major League Baseball on ESPN Radio. Last season, the Pirates reached the postseason for the second consecutive season, only to be sent home early after losing the wild card. Will they return for the third straight year? This weekend they face the Cubs, who have plans to make their first postseason berth since 2008. The Cubs and Pirates. The pregame at 3 Eastern, first pitch at 4. Saturday on ESPN Radio and the new ESPN app. The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
Thrilled to be joined by our very own Stephen A. Smith from First Take and so much more.
I'm in the house.
He's in the house.
You're always in the house.
What's up, fellas?
Now, we are very much in your milieu today because we're going Hollywood today. Right? So we're going Hollywood because we announced our contest today. We're going to send listeners to the ESPYs. They're going to go to Hollywood.
Right.
So we got a little Hollywood. You're kind of a Hollywood guy. You're certainly hanging out with Money Mayweather, a little Hollywood kind of flash and dash. So today we decided to try and match you with that.
Well, do you see any Stevie Wonder kind of look like it?
Just a little bit.
Yeah, hit the music. Go ahead, watch.
With oh my Lord, with my.
I'm telling you, I got the whole thing down.
I only had the drag to work. Okay.
Very superstitious. He does. I mean, it's
maybe y'all. I like the look. I like the look. I always laugh when you try to be cool because it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
I have my own special kind of swag. They don't sell this in stores. So a million. I want to get into Mayweather with you. I want to get into Tebow with you. Let's start with the basketball playoffs.
Yeah.
And Jay Williams this morning. I'll let you tell it, but highly critical of Deron Williams and the way he came out last night.
And Steve, I've heard you talk about this a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Darren Williams a couple years ago, I was like, that's the top 5 PG in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And after Paul Pierce had made those statements, I was expecting to see a D. Will who was passionate the other night, somebody who would try to take over a ball game.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see that once again. He's everything that I thought he was.
Yeah. We agree. I've been saying it for quite a long time. And it's crazy because the kind of thing that he's going to be criticized for is the kind of thing that normally, under normal circumstances, you would applaud. When Paul Pierce came out and said what he said about Darren Williams, he was right on the money, because basically Darren Williams, he's not everything I believe you are. When I watched Jay Williams play at Duke, he was my favorite player in the nation, because not just because of his skill set, but because how you came at cats. Jay came at cats like, let's get it on. Darren Williams is not that kind of guy. Happily married, beautiful family. He's got the type of attitude that's, everything's going to be all right. It's no big deal. I'll go there, I'll put in my work, I'll do what I need to do, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And that's just how life is. But you took $98 million. And when you get $98 million, that's franchise money. And I often say this. That's why I'm not, not that I would have been a president of basketball operations, but let me tell you something. If I was, that man would not have gotten that money from me, because it's not just about your skill set. It's about how bad you want it. It has to pain you to lose. And more importantly than that, you need to be box office. It's not good enough just to be good, unless you're Tim Duncan. You're Tim Duncan, you win a championship. Okay, your personality don't matter. You're going out there, you're playing, and you're winning. No problem. But when you are challenged in the category of winning, and you're demanding $80, $90, $100 million, then you need to be box office. And part of box office appeal is giving off the impression that you would take somebody's heart out of their chest if you had to in order to win. That's not Darren Williams. He's a very talented player, like you said. We were talking about him, top 5 point guards in the game. Guys, he doesn't want it bad enough. It doesn't hurt him enough to win, to lose, rather. And Paul Pierce saying what he said about him. How many guys do you know would have that said about him and have no comeback?
That's what I'm saying.
0. Could you imagine? Hey, Stephen A., Jay, they don't care. It just wasn't a priority. Really? Who do you think you're talking about? And then you're going to go out on the court in Atlanta and you are going to ball. It's not him.
He had 2 assists the other night. 2.
Listen, he can play. He just doesn't want it bad enough. He can sit there and slice it any way he wants to. He doesn't want it bad enough. Losing doesn't hurt enough. Mess with that man's family, and I guarantee you see a different Darren Williams.
Mike and Mike,
you see a different person.
Stephen A. in our studio here. Of course, First Take starts an hour from now every day, right after us on ESPN2. Let's work our way over to Cleveland, where my observation watching yesterday, and look, if there's 2 things I'm good at, 1, I'm cool, and 2, is I'm very good at watching one game and making the proclamations about what's going to happen over the next 10 years based on them.
Right.
But here's what I saw yesterday. I think Kyrie Irving is eventually going to be the best teammate LeBron James ever had in the playoffs. And by that I mean Dwayne Wade is historically a far greater player than LeBron. But by the time
Kyrie.
Than Kyrie.
Right.
And listen, knock on wood, Kyrie, God bless him, maybe he'll become that great. But even if he doesn't become as great as D. Wade was at his best, by the time D. Wade and LeBron came together, Dwayne Wade was at the very end of his best. LeBron was never going to be able to decline and have someone else pick it up and carry him over the finish line.
That's part of why he left.
Kyrie Irving is 23. So you could see LeBron being the best player on this team for 3 or 4 years, and then Kyrie Irving becoming the best player on this team, and LeBron being the second best player, whatever it is. He is now, I think, has a chance to be with the best teammate he's ever had in the playoffs. And am I basing that on one great performance? Obviously not, but I think that's the reality of the situation.
Listen, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. If the Cleveland Cavaliers win the championship this year, it will be because of Kyrie Irving. I know what LeBron is going to bring. I have no doubts about that. And we know what Kevin Love needs to bring in order to help this team along. But the X factor is going to be the status, the stature of a Kyrie Irving in these playoffs. Because that Kyrie Irving that dropped 55 on Portland, that dropped 57 on the San Antonio Spurs, is very capable of doing exactly that in a playoff game, is very capable of averaging 25 in a playoff series. The kid has skills. And guess what? he's also got, in a quiet kind of way, he's got that dog me and Jay were alluding to. You're not going to talk about Kyrie Irving that way, and Kyrie Irving's not going to get on the court and try to give it to you. He's not having it. LeBron James decides to come back to Cleveland officially after Kyrie Irving signs his $90 million contract. What was the problem initially? Kyrie Irving is sitting there like, nothing but respect for the best player in the world. But I ain't chopped liver, and I ain't trying to be your little brother. I can ball, too. This is my franchise, too. And no matter what you think you're going to do, you're going to need me in order to pull off. And that is the way Kyrie Irving plays. He steps on the court. Yes, he might sit there, and LeBron might take over point guard duties or whatever. People were wondering, well, why would Kyrie Irving have a problem with that? He didn't have a problem with it. You know why? Because that's more shots for him. Because Kyrie Irving knows that LeBron is looking to pass the ball, and he expects him to be a primary target. This is what it's all about. And Kyrie Irving, he's got that kind of dog in him. He's coming.
Let me ask both of you this question. Jay, I'll start with you. The Bulls, with Derrick Rose playing the way he played the other night, are they the biggest threat that Cleveland will have in the first round? Those two would figure to match up in the second round, and I think there's every expectation both will get through this first round fairly quickly. Does Derrick Rose have to play the way he played the other night? Is he capable of doing that over a long 7-game series? And if he does, can they beat Cleveland?
I don't know if he could do it over a 7-game series. I would question because I haven't seen that yet from D Rose. But the way him and Reggie Butler looked the other night, I mean, I would love to see that matchup. Jimmy Butler. Sorry, I don't know why I would say Reggie Butler. Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
D Rose will have the kind of moxie to guard a guy like Kyrie. And then Jimmy Butler, I think, will have the kind of moxie to try to guard somebody like LeBron or Tony Snell. I think it'll be an interesting matchup. I would still favor Cleveland. I actually think Atlanta might give Cleveland more of a game than the Bulls would.
Let me say this. Preseason, I picked the Chicago Bulls to come out of the East. Playoffs time, I said Cleveland. The only reason I said that is because of the health of Derrick Rose. I can't rely on it. I'm wishing him, I'm praying that he's going to be good, because when Derrick Rose is healthy, he is special. He is a superstar. But that guy has not been around for the last 2.5 years due to injury. And I don't suspect that he'll be able to sustain a level of greatness, whatever level of greatness, even in increments that we saw in the first game against Milwaukee. I don't see that being something that he can sustain health-wise. I've got to see it to believe it. But if Derrick Rose is healthy and we could pencil him in being healthy for the playoffs, the Chicago Bulls can beat Cleveland. They can beat Cleveland. Now, I don't think they could beat Cleveland with a Timothy Mozgov and an Anderson Varejao with a Tristan Thompson. But the fact that Anderson Varejao was out and you've just got Mozgov with Tristan Thompson, who I like because I like Tristan Thompson a lot, Chicago could take them if Derrick Rose were healthy. Problem is that I can't rely on that, so I'm still rolling with Cleveland.
Let me go back to Cleveland real quick. So you hear names like Anderson Varejao, you hear Timothy Mozgov, you hear LeBron James, you hear Kyrie. I'm not hearing about Kevin Love, right?
Right.
Is Kevin Love's mentality where you need it to be in order for him to win the championship, or what needs to change, if anything needs to change?
I'm going to say that, first of all, I do think his mentality needs to change. Not quite as bad as Darren Williams. He's just trying to fit in. It's a tougher process for him than it was for Chris Bosh. But the other thing is that it's the acquisition of Mozgov combined with J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert. J.R. Smith is a guy taking additional shots. Iman Shumpert helps because he's willing to guard any perimeter defender you give him that assignment. He wants it. And Mozgov is playing that big boy role. So you got Griffin, the GM, who's done an outstanding job. But what's gotten Love lost in the shuffle is he's a guy devoid of incredible athleticism. He averaged 26 sandwich in 2 complete seasons in Minnesota when he was injured in between there. He's a guy he had 19 and 12, averaged about 17 and 10 this year, or 17 and 11. Give him his respect. But the flip side to it is that LeBron is right. He's got to elevate himself to another level if they're going to win the chip. I have no concerns whatsoever about Kyrie Irving. Zero. He will show up. Kevin Love is an X factor because, again, is your shot falling? Because he doesn't have much of a post game, doesn't play above the rim, isn't the rebounder demon that he was in Minnesota. He's got to hit those 3-point shots in order to be effective, and I don't know if that's going to happen.
It's hard to get rebounds when you're always 25 feet away from the basket.
Yes. How about that?
Mike and Stephen A. If Stephen A. looks weary already this morning, it's because he woke up and heard the news that he knows is going to cause him great pain in 50 minutes when they start First Take, and Skip Bayless has his guy back. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you will in exactly 1 minute on Mike and Mike after this word from TakeMeFishing.org. And if Golic was here, he'd be telling you the story of the first fish he ever caught on a stone pier off of Lake Erie, and he'd be telling you memories he has of fishing with his father, fishing with his brothers, and fishing with his sons. I would love to tell you those stories, except I have no such memories. I would like to catch a fish, and perhaps I'd be catching my first fish someday. And whether it's your first fish of the day or your first fish of your life, TakeMeFishing.org wants you to get out and make your first catch. And if you show them using the hashtag FirstCatchSweeps, you could win some magnificent prizes. You could win an all-new Evinrude E-Tech G2250, powered by Ranger Z521C Comanche. See the official rules at TakeMeFishing.org. There's no purchase necessary. It's available in the 48 U.S. states and D.C., 18 and older. Ends May 25th, 2015. It's void in Alaska and Hawaii and where prohibited. You can see TakeMeFishing.org for all the rules. I think the good times are going to be rolling on First Take. Oh, my goodness. Mike and Mike were presented by Progressive Insurance. Jay Williams is in for Golic today. Stephen A. is here. Good enough to come in this morning, spend some time with us. We'll talk about basketball. We're going to talk about Floyd Mayweather. And then Stephen A., he's got that look on his face because Tim Tebow is going to sign with the Philadelphia Eagles today, and you are going to have to deal with Skip Bayless and having this conversation. Stephen A., the floor is yours.
You know, I love Skip Bayless. I truly, truly do. It's my brother from another mother. Something wrong with that man. I understand that, but I can deal with it. I've dealt with a lot of things with Skip Tebow on many occasions. I've dealt with him complaining about LeBron James shimmying when LeBron James has dropped 50. I've dealt with him and you know, dealing with Theo and his antics after he scored a touchdown. I've dealt with Skip Bayless over a lot of things over the years. But I wonder, I look up to the heavenly stars and I often question, what did I do to deserve this when it comes to him and Tebow? It's just not fair. But I'm going to have to deal with it. This is why they pay me the bucks, to deal with this kind of moment that I'm going to have to deal with today. It's going to be a very long day, and I'm resentful of you, Mr. Mike Greenberg, right now, because I actually wasn't thinking about that when I came on the show. I was actually, I mean, you actually distracted me from having to think about Skip Tebow. All right, talk about Tebow. But now, 10 o'clock... Lord.
Did you make the roster? It's coming up.
You know what? Listen. I like Tebow a lot. He's a great guy, great person. Loved seeing him and talking to him here. And I really believe that he can make an NFL roster. I think he should be on an NFL roster. I only had one issue with Tim Tebow all of these years. He can't throw. And to me, all of these news reports that come out validate what I've been saying. He can't throw. Forget the 46% completions. Forget that. Don't even ignore that. Okay, just ignore that. You know it's a problem when it's a news story that a quarterback in the NFL can throw a spiral. Because that was what was all over the news over the last 48 hours. Tim Tebow has actually been working with Mr. House, Tom Brady's coach, and before where the ball was wobbly, it's now a spiral, and it's got the right spin on it. Really? That's what we're doing now? You're an NFL quarterback because you can throw a spiral? See, this is the inequity. This is the unfairness that I have alluded to, because it's a news story, Greeny, Jay, that he throws a spiral. If that isn't favoritism, I don't know what is. You're a quarterback in the NFL. You have not thrown a pass since what, 2012, 2013, 2 years later. Here you come, and you're getting signed to an NFL roster. And the reason is he can throw a spiral now. This is the world we're living in. Go figure. Go figure. Go figure.
I think everyone is eager to hear what Skip has to say about this. You'll
Lord.
See that in 45 minutes.
Except me.
And you're one of two people that have no choice but to sit there and listen. Right. But everyone else will be watching and listening, so that's First Take coming up in 45 minutes. All right, next order of business. very much enjoyed you and Floyd Mayweather, but likely not as much as you enjoyed you and Floyd Mayweather, flying around in jets and hanging around in Rolls Royces and all kinds of stuff, living the Money Mayweather lifestyle. So let me ask it to you this way, because I know you know him a little bit, and obviously you are so into the boxing and looking forward to this fight, as everybody is. Did you learn anything from the time you spent with Mayweather here recently that surprised you, was illuminatory to you, and in particular, anything that gives you any insight into what to expect in the ring with Pac?
A couple of things. Number one, he's actually richer than the reports, have put out there.
Did he throw any bricks of money?
No, he won a $190,000 bet because he bet about the score being in a 5-point range for a Detroit Utah Jazz regular season game at halftime. So he literally made the bet while he was talking to me, won the bet at halftime, and then took me down to the sports bookie to pick up $190,000 to throw into a knapsack. This is the world that he lives in. He's got a penthouse suite in a building he owns. He's got a private jet, a 14-seater. He's got his house over 20 acres. He's worth more than $500 million. And that's to be kind. What I also got from him is that to some degree he also feels victimized, believe it or not. He feels like he's portrayed in a negative light, by the media because of his success. Not just the media, but Joe Public at large. But he swears he doesn't care, but I think he does. And I think that this fight, regardless of him trying to come across as if it's just another fight, he knows in his heart of hearts it is not. He understands the urgency. He thinks it's incredibly unfair that his legacy is on the line, but he can't deny that in a lot of people's eyes it's going to be, and he's more serious than I've ever seen him. Now, to some people that might be a bad thing because you're going away and you're deviating from what has made you successful. He's swearing that it's not. His line, and he said it in the piece, he said there's 5 ways to beat Pacquiao because of those 5 losses. He said there's no way to beat me. He said there's no proof of that because it's never happened. So that was just a piece. Like I said, I spent 7.5 hours with him. I'm hopeful that we'll see an extensive more amount of my time with him over those 7.5 hours. That was just about 5 minutes that they put on the air yesterday. But I love my boxing. Other than basketball, there's no sport that I love more than boxing. And I have waited for this for 6 years, and I cannot wait. Oh, my goodness, I can't wait.
Do you think the mental Jedi mind tricks that you try to see Pacquiao and Freddie Roach play with him, do you think it's affecting him? Like the prime example, him showing up 2.5, 3 hours late to his presser. And then Freddie Roach coming out with those comments about him just not being prepared. And, these are all things that are going to help Pacquiao beat him. Do you think that's playing into him? How is that influencing Floyd?
Well, he swears that it's not. I have to imagine that it is, because I remember the Floyd Mayweather that was sitting ringside for Ricky Hatton when Ricky Hatton won a fight, and then Ricky Hatton called him out. And then he stood up and looked at his business manager, Leonard Ellaby, and said, make the damn fight. And then went out there and put it on him. And so if you've got that, you can't be that great with that level of confidence, never acquiescing or capitulating to anything or anyone, and then this kind of stuff doesn't affect you. Yes, you got to show up. You don't need to be having the media and everybody waiting 2-3 hours. You got to be more classful than that. That's just the bottom line. But the flip side to it is that this entire negotiations, all of these years, Floyd's thing was, I wasn't the A-lister when I fought Oscar De La Hoya. Oscar De La Hoya was, and we had to capitulate to his demands. This is not foreign in the industry of boxing. All of these guys know it. You work and bust your tail for the right to be the A-list guy. And when you're the A-list guy, you expect to be treated that way. He said, but in my case, I had to fight and negotiate for it. Why was that? And so those kind of things are the kind of things that he alludes to. He says, I earned this. I've been a champion for 18 years. How is Pacquiao the fighter of the decade, but I've been a champion for 18 years and I'm undefeated, and he lost 5 times. What world are these people living in? Regardless of what you want to think about him, he does make valid points when it comes to stuff like that he brings up. Now, he ain't telling everything, because there is reason for people to dislike him and stuff like that. And he's got to own that, whether it be privately or otherwise. But in terms of his record as a boxer and how he's conducted himself, you can't question it. I've seen the guy around, and I've known him, not intimately, of course, but I've known him for the better part of the last 10 years. I have never seen this man out of shape, whether he was fighting or not. Ever. He is always, always, always in shape. And we see boxers letting it go just a little bit in between fights and stuff like that. That's not Floyd. Floyd's been fighting since he was 2 years old. He's 38. For 36 years, he's given himself to boxing, and he has been stellar at it, and that can't be denied.
All right, so we'll see as we're now less than 2 weeks away. Stephen A. will be in Vegas next week leading up to the fight. First Take will be out there leading up to the fight, and First Take coming up about 40 minutes from now here on ESPN2 is plenty on the boxing, plenty on the baseball, the basketball playoffs, and, of course, Skip Bayless on Tim Tebow.
Skip Tebow, that's his name today. Skip Tebow. Skip Tebow.
Great to have you here, Stephen.
Always good
as
to see you,
always.
man.
Mike and Mike.
Joining us now is their president, Theo Epstein, on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. And obviously, Theo, everyone is talking about Chris Bryant. So let's start by framing it this way. Would you say that through 3 games, it would be inappropriate to start saying he is a Hall of Famer?
Well, first, before I start, morning, guys, let me echo your thoughts. Good luck to everyone running the Boston Marathon. Unbelievable day in Boston, and carries a lot of meaning for everybody there, given recent events. So best of luck to all. Yeah, I think Chris deserves the right to be a 23-year-old rookie, finding his way. But certainly, it's been interesting for him and for everyone around the club. They pitched him really different than I've ever seen a player pitch in his first 3 big league games. They threw him basically all changeups and all speed pitches his first few days and pitched him exclusively inside with the fastball. So I think that with all the attention he got in spring training, some of the scouting reports got out, and he's in the process of making adjustments, but has handled himself really well so far.
How about handling himself as far as all of the attention? I mean, I was talking about this earlier today. Baseball is getting right now the 2 things it needs most desperately, or 2 guys are bringing it, which is young stars that have become events. Chris Bryant has become an event in Chicago. Matt Harvey has become an event in New York. All of the attention and the excitement, the enthusiasm, the flashbulbs, or whatever it is when he's getting his first at-bat. How has he handled that stuff personally?
He's handled everything incredibly well. That's one of the main reasons we drafted him, is the type of person that he is. And he was raised right by his parents, Mike and Susie Bryant. And this kid is just extremely mature, well beyond his years, and treats people the right way. And I know right now it seems like an event when he comes up. I think what he wants and what we want, and I think what is reality, is that he's an important part of a young team, that's competing and finding its way. It's more than Chris Bryant. He's got there's another 23-year-old rookie on the team, and Jorge Soler. Our leaders are a couple 25-year-old veterans, and Anthony Rizzo and Starlin Castro. There's more young players on the way. There's some good veterans on the club. I think Chris just wants to fit in, do his part, help contribute to wins. But I think he understands the attention. He's sophisticated. He was a business major. He gets it, and I think he knows if he just works hard and treats people the right way and keeps things in perspective and focuses on team, things will be fine. That's the approach he's taken.
Theo, what are your views on Scott Boras's comments?
Oh, I think Scott was just doing his job. I think Scott does a really good job for most of his clients, and I think he had a role to play, and he played it, and we ended up talking after the fact and sharing our individual perspectives, and I think for the most part our interests are aligned, but he was just doing his job the way he chooses to do it, and I have no problem with it. The same way we were doing our jobs. His job is to represent his client the way he wants to. Our job is to do the right thing for the Chicago Cubs, and both of us have an interest in Chris Bryant maximizing his potential, being put in a position to succeed, and having a great long career, hopefully with a couple of World Series along the way.
Well, speaking of your team, have you guys started this $575 million renovation process for Wrigley Field?
Yeah, it started. We had a real busy winter. Mainly, it was a lot of infrastructure improvements that'll pave the way for more obvious upgrades in future years. I mean, next year, opening day, a brand new home clubhouse that our players will be really happy about if you've ever stepped foot in the old Wrigley clubhouse. But also this year we got a brand new video board in left field that the fans are really enjoying, and it's a bit of a work in progress. As you know, the construction is ongoing at Wrigley throughout the course of the season, so everyone involved, from our players to our fans, are having to be patient this year and put up with some things that are a means to an end, because when this project is done, the way the Fenway project was done, you'll feel like you're sitting in a brand new ballpark, even as you get to enjoy over a century of history and tradition with it.
Mike and Theo, I haven't been there this year yet to see it, but I told the story many times that when I took my son Steven to his first game ever at Wrigley Field, there was a close play at the plate, and then immediately he's looking around for the replay, and there wasn't one to be found, and he's like, Dad, what's going on here? Because that's something that people become accustomed to. So now, obviously, you got to walk that line between 100 years of history and sort of keeping up with things. Theo Epstein is with us. I want to go back quickly to the Chris Bryant and the service time and all of that decision. I said basically exactly the same thing you said at the time. Everyone has their role to play here, right? I mean, we all understand what the game is. We all understand what everyone's doing. He's got to represent his guy. He's got to say what he's got to say. And you've got to do what you've got to do, what's in the best interest of the player. Is there a flaw in the rule there? That would be the question I would ask. I mean, it seems like if you were to make the service time, I'm just making a number up here, if you were to make it 80 days of a season or something like that, something that would really be meaningful to a team, then the team might have to consider doing it differently. Do you think that there might be a better way, something for someone to talk about, to change the rule? Because I understand why everyone did exactly what they did, and I would have done it the same way. Do you think it's a system that needs to be looked at?
I think there's a really good chance it gets examined during the next collective bargaining discussions, and whether the sides are able to come up with a better system or not, I'm not sure. I hope so, since so many people were paying attention to it instead of focusing on what was happening on the field, which I think is when baseball fandom's at its best, when you just focus on the games itself and the performance of the players rather than the rules and the money and contractual situations. So I hope so. I think both sides are interested in finding a system that sort of gets that aspect of the business side of baseball to back to the fine print where it deserves, and just let people focus on the field.
And finally, Theo, I had a chance to see you last year and talk a little bit, and there was no secret what your mandate was when you were hired in Chicago, which is tear the whole thing down, build it for the foundation to begin with, and build it the right way, build something that can last. And this is the year that you and all the Cubs fans have been sort of pointing to as the chance to really get that done. So from whatever your original master plan was, where is this team right now, and how far are you, in your own mind, from the team that you envisioned putting together when you began?
Well, looking at it from 10,000 feet, I think this is a year that we start to an important transition. So as you mentioned, for the last 3 years, we've basically been in a mode where we've just been accumulating young talent, elite young talent by whatever means necessary, drafting high, and all that comes with it, trading away 40% of our starting rotation each year, and all that comes with it as we have. And we know that in the big market, we need to make that count. You don't get two chances to try to build like that in a big market. And we were lucky some things went our way. Drafting the Chris Bryants and the Kyle Schwarbers, we were able to trade for the Jake Arrietas and Anthony Rizzos and Addison Russells of the world. And you look up 3 years later, and not that it all went perfectly. It certainly didn't. It never does in baseball. There's some things I could have done better and done differently. But if you look at it, we've got the consensus best farm system in baseball. As I mentioned earlier, it's nice to look out on the field, and you got Rizzo and Castro, 25 years old. Bryant and Soler, 23 years old. You've got Addison Russell, 21 coming. Javi Baez, 22 coming. Kyle Schwarber, 22 coming. Some pretty good pitching, some pretty good veteran leadership. So it's the start of the transition. I don't think this is going to be the best team that we field over the next 5-7 years as our players mature, as we add more veterans, as all of our prospects come up. I think we're going to get better and better through the years, but we are certainly in it and competing. I mean, that's from 10,000 feet how we look at it. Day to day, we're grinding. We're out to win the NL Central. We're off to a pretty good start. We survived some adversity, some injuries at the start of the season, and we're competing in a very tough NL Central. So it's a lot of fun around Wrigley right now. Our fans more than deserve the opportunity to follow this team day in, day out, and have us play meaningful games deep into September and into October.
That should be fun to watch. We'll get out there at some point soon to see you, Theo. Thank you very much for the time. Good luck.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
This has been the best of Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio Pod Center. To hear more from Mike and Mike, log on to ESPNradio.com and become an ESPN Radio Insider.
The best of Mike and Mike.
You know, Golic, AutoZone does all these cool things to help customers get in the zone.
Sure do. They charge your battery for free. They even loan tools free for bigger jobs.
Right, but what if your zone is something else? Like, what if your zone is winning the ultimate Mike and Mike experience, 4 days and 3 nights in L.A. for the ESPYs?
AutoZone is helping us get you there. It's the Mike and Mike experience at the ESPY Sweepstakes, presented by AutoZone. All the details are at ESPNradio.com/Mike's ESPY contest.
Cool.
It's called The Zone. AutoZone's going to help get you there.
Two of baseball's best go head-to-head in interleague action when the Tigers head to St. Louis to face the Cardinals. That one is gone. The pregame at 7 Eastern, first pitch at 8, Sunday on ESPN and ESPN Radio.